Hi everyone, and welcome back to round two from the Easter Congress. It's been a while since the last video, but that's because I've been playing off in another event, and not to spoil that too much, because I will be making videos on that as well. That one went pretty well, and is in some ways the redemption for this event. Not to say that these games are going to be completely terrible, as we're going to see. But yeah, not much else to say really, apart from I'm playing black against my opponent who's higher rated again. I am the lowest rated person in this section. But that doesn't stop me from having good games. And as we're about to see, I had every chance to win this one. Yeah, so d4, d5, c4, my opponent plays the Queen's Gambit. And if you've watched another video on my channel, you know that I love the Queen's Gambit accepted, and I've been really enjoying it recently, so that's what I played, I took. He played e4. This is the most common way to play. I think as a kid I used to play d4, d4, c5, d4, c4, there we go, and then play e4 when they took. And that's not because I knew theory or anything, but to me that just seemed like the most practical and principled solution. And it's what a lot of people will play against you. So you need to know what to play here, and you need to not be slow. And what I like to do is just strike in the center immediately. And also in this position, your opponent, the most common move here is actually a slight mistake here from white. And it's what my opponent played here as well. And every time I played this over the board, it's what everyone has always been playing against me, is to play d5. And the reason why this is a mistake is this pawn on e4 is actually going to be a bit of a weakness for for white, and it's going to be hard for them to hold on. And in many ways, you're actually just going to keep the pawn that you took. So it's not really a Queen's Gambit anymore, it's just a free pawn. So yeah, you attack the pawn. Most logical way to defend is knight c3, and then this nice move here, c6. And pretty much everyone in this position will take the pawn back with their bishop. And the idea behind c6 is, yes, there is a line that you can play with bishop b4, but another line that I like to play is to play b5. And the whole point of c6 is to support the pawn and help attack the bishop. The bishop has to move back. The main move in this position is to play bishop b3, and this is what I was expecting. However, my opponent made a mistake, and my opponent played bishop d3. And yeah, because I wasn't expecting this, and I say I'm new to playing the Queen's Gambit, except I have been playing for a bit now. But I have not seen this mistake before. This is the first time I've seen this, so I wasn't particularly sure. And realistically, I should just be able to calculate it over the board. And what I came up with my mind is I just want to compare it against the main line, and this is how I feel like you should approach these openings when you get it out of theory. Is the move I was expecting, bishop b3, is you meet with b4, and the point is that the knight now has to move, and when the knight moves, that this pawn is unguarded, and you can take this pawn. The downside now of him playing this way now doesn't really see much of a downside, because if I did the same, he attacks my knight, he moves the knight back. Now this pawn isn't actually hanging, so I can't take it. So what is the mistake of bishop d3? Why is it bad? Because it is a mistake. Well, the mistake is that by playing the bishop back this way rather than this way, you've unguarded the pawn in the center, and black can just take here. And really, this is just going to be pleasant for black. Even if white is able to get the pawn back, which they can do in some lines, really black's development is completely sorted. They're just going to castle quickly. Black has no issues, probably to be preferred. Threatening d4, yeah, this is just a nice position. Yeah, so unfortunately I didn't see that, and even though that seems really obvious, yeah, this is one of those games. I played a6 here, just reinforcing this pawn structure so that if he decided to take here and I take back with the knight, this pawn isn't hanging. But now I've just sort of given up the advantage I have, and now we're back to equality. But still, equality in 7 moves against white is still a pretty good thing. He decided to take, I'm happy to take back, I'm just developing my pieces. He plays a3, and in this game, my opponent's going to play some quite dubious moves, and they're not really to do with the position. And I think this is the one thing I did really well in this game, is to sort of take advantage of this in the opening, because a3 it's not really good doing anything. I didn't really want to pin his knight anyway. He was just going to castle quickly anyway. He can defend the knight if he really needs to. So yeah, it's not really doing much. More importantly, is I want to be stopping this bishop coming to e3, because this bishop really doesn't have any other squares. So once I start restricting that, that's what we're going to see. So I bring my bishop out first. He develops his knight. Now I bring my bishop out. Now it doesn't have this e3 square. He castles, and now I play h6 before castling, and we can see that this bishop now can't go to any of these 3 squares without some serious weakness. I mean, you can play here, but this looks horrible for white. and the only other square that you can come to is here, but now you're blocking this file and you're losing a bishop as well, even to add on to insult to injury. So this bishop can't really move, so now it's a bit hard for white to play. So he plays h3 himself, but this isn't really stopping me. I wasn't wanting to do the same thing. This sort of a3, h3 hasn't really netted him anything, whereas my h3, I think, h6, sorry, I feel was really useful. My castle, and here he really surprised me, and I guess it makes sense because you're trying to get away from the pin, but he played king h1, and now he's just giving me so many tempo to develop that despite me not taking advantage of him at the very start, really black is like the only one that can be better here. With all the development, notice how his rooks are pretty much where they started. His bishop hasn't moved out yet, whereas all my pieces are in the center. He goes for an attack. There is a really nice computer move coming up here. First, I just play the natural move, rook pinning the queen. He moves the queen to get out of the pin, and then I bring the other rook to the file. Now, there is a really nice move here, which uses an idea that will come up in a second, is that noticing that this bishop is actually trapped, and you can play this, and it's really hard for white to deal with. I don't think you're winning the bishop immediately, but it just becomes such a nice position because white has to spend so many tempos stopping this from happening that you get all your pieces developed and white's just sort of stepping over themselves. Instead, I played the natural rook c8, which I think is also fine, just aligning with the queen. That's where rooks are meant to go. He plays f5, play bishop b3. Nice tactic, because this bishop can't move, he has to move the queen, and now I've infiltrated my rook. He brings his queen back. I have to be careful because knight d4 might trap my rook, because then the rook wouldn't have anywhere to go and it would be attacked by the queen, so I'm just going to bring it back. Why struggle with those kind of things? He plays b4, attacking my bishop. I go to trade it. He brings his rook up. This is now sort of dubiously bad for him, and all of his inaccuracies are built up till this point. And I want to set the scene for you. This is round 2, so I'm not too tired yet. Like, this is the second game of the day. I have an hour on the clock, so plenty of time to calculate this. And I can play many moves here are winning for black, but there is one that is just completely crushing and winning on the spot, and perhaps you want to sharpen your tactics and try calculate here. So the move that I played here is -4 and still completely crushing, but there's a -6 move here. And I was aware of this idea, but I just didn't play it out because I don't know. I had an hour to calculate and I just didn't properly calculate. I don't know if it was laziness or lack of focus, but yeah. So the move to be played here, I don't know if that just gave it away, but is knight d4, and this is really just crushing the position because yes, the bishop is falling, but now so is the queen, and notice how we pick up the rook in the corner. This is just winning now. The knight's going to come back out. This bishop, yeah, you can move back, but if you move the bishop back, then my knight comes to safety. Sorry, knight comes to safety, and yeah, I'm just up in exchange. Not only am I up in exchange, but I'm up a really nice position. These rooks are just completely dominating these files. This rook is in the middle of nowhere. This pawn is under attack. It can probably come under attack another time, which is why knight b3 is such a good move. And yeah, white's just lost this. It's -7. So unfortunately, although I did calculate this point, I overlooked that simply just the rook in the corner is hanging, and this would have been winning. But yeah, it was a poor calculation. It's frustrating to sort of relive this, but oh well. So instead of playing that, I play the second best move, bishop takes. This is still completely fine, and I now follow up with the correct move of knight d4. So it wasn't like I was completely blind to this idea. The rook is now being attacked. He has to take, and in this position, again, calculate what do you take back with, because you can take back 3 ways. Which is the best one? Best way to take back is with the pawn, but just to show you what I played, queen's takes is the worst way of the 3. Taking back with the rook is also good. Black is still better, it's just showing you how good my position is, all of these pieces. But now I've sort of given up some of my advantage, and I overlooked this nice move that white has, which is queen e1, just defending the knight still and getting away from the pin. A stronger move here, and what I was scared of playing, again, could have calculated it. It's a common theme here, is to just take the pawn, take the knight with the pawn. And the move that I was scared of was e5, but this is now just crushing for black because you can just move the rook over, and white has nothing you can take here. But then if I just take here, I mean take, maybe queen e1, and then just take here. And yes, you're only up a pawn, but your position is so much better. These pawns are weak. This is just winning. So yeah, it's unfortunate I missed that. I think that position, although it is completely winning, I feel like, oh, sorry, I'm revealing the game. I feel like this position is so much, position, takes here, and, he played knight takes. Yeah, sorry, position here. Sometimes these chess is hard to use. The position here, coming from here, where you're only up a pawn, yes, now it seems obvious, but even without the computer, I don't think you'd be able to accurately say this is -5 and completely crushing with black. This seems a bit closer than it actually is. So I took with the queen, but that's not that great because he can just defend. And then I remove my rook over, and now he can just attack my queen. And notice how his pieces are now getting back into the game. They spent the last 24 moves being bad, but now because I've traded everything off, they can easily come in. And we get into a pretty equal game at this point. And the next few moves, just improving. I just want to avoid this fork, move over. He decides to take my knight. And here, in sort of my frustration of I've been better this entire game for about 25 moves, and now I'm pretty much equal. I want to arrogantly create some counterplay. And my opponent even told me after the game, if I just took with a rook, he probably would have offered me a draw, which I would have accepted because it is just a drawn position. I, however, came up with this idea. My idea is to take with the pawn, deliberately opening the file, knowing that I am going to be sacrificing a pawn because there's no real way that I can defend this because this is probably just mate in like a million ways. So I'm going to play this to sacrifice the pawn. This was my plan from taking back with the pawn. Unfortunately for me, and bring my rooks to the file, and if anyone's under attack, it should be white, and black is much better, and yes, I've sacrificed a pawn, but this is going to be fun, exciting. Unfortunately for me, there's a move that completely rains on my parade here. Every other move is about drawish, so I'm not even attacking that much. But there is one move that's +7 and basically checkmate at this point, which I overlooked because I was only concerned with the rook coming this way, but unfortunately the rook can go the other way. And yeah, it's quite surprising really, because white has an incredibly strong threat here, which is taking the pawn and bringing his queen in, and also bringing his rook in, and this is just going to be checkmate. And the only way to defend this is give up my queen for a rook, and obviously this is going to be losing if I do that. So what I played is rook c7, just trying to guard against this infiltration. Plays rook d8, and this, oh sorry, this thrust is now just unstoppable, and there's nothing I can do about it. There's no way for the queen to come over to guard. Yeah, so unfortunately another sort of story of this game and this tournament overall, I know I've only shown one game so far, but it happens a few times, is that I am very much ahead positions where I've worked in and I've managed to get a lead. And this one was the most hurtful to me because this one I had an hour on the clock. In the other games, I actually do try calculate, and I do find that the games definitely are more higher quality. But yeah, this one was just a bit inexcusable. And part of the thing that I've realized is that I'm actually losing focus in my games as much as I'm calling it laziness. And in the tournament that I've just played in, something that I've used is just getting up and moving around. And I do that very frequently, which I can understand is quite frustrating for my opponent. I find it frustrating when my opponents do it. But I realize how useful it is just getting up because you're staring at a chessboard for 3 hours, 4 hours, and time goes through quickly, but you don't realize how much you are just staring at a chessboard. You lose focus, you lose attention, you make stupid mistakes like this, and you misevaluate because you're sort of tired or chess drunk, I guess is the word. But yeah, unfortunately this was just a bad loss. But the next two games are actually quite a good performance from me, I'm happy to say, and they are again against higher rated opponents, so I was quite happy with that. And I hope to also post them sort of relatively soon because I've got quite a few games to get through. Anyway, yeah, cheers, thanks for watching, bye.